Good morning, guys, and welcome to Unique Not Different with me, Shamla. And today I have Tanika James, who is a mental health advocate and who deals with a lot of community work when it comes to mental advocacy and dealing with, persons in community. So good morning, Tanika, and how are you doing?
Good morning, Shamla. I am great, and you?
I'm fine, thank you. And today we are going to talk about isolation because in as I was talking during the break, we were talking about how persons feeling isolated during COVID. But what
Right.
was we do not bring aware to the in the community, the population is that persons who are aged and persons with disability, especially physical
Mhm.
disability, feel very isolated because a lot of times, you know, we, not me per se, but persons with disability do not get out as much and are
Right.
restricted to their home. So this leads to my first question, right? When feeling, what leads? Because personally, we hear isolated a lot of time. What
Mhm.
leads to a feeling of isolation?
Right. So I think that what leads to isolation is just that lack of connection with other human beings. We are wired for connection, we are wired for relationship. And so we feel lonely when we don't have what is that physical touch, the ability to just have the comfort of another human being next to us. And so those feelings of isolation come about. And you mentioned in the break in terms of the pandemic, and we definitely saw how much we need human connection, right?
Yes.
If we have any example of how much we need connection, it would have been the COVID-19 pandemic, right? What I can say is, in my preparation, one of the things that I wanted to be a takeaway was that resilience doesn't mean doing it alone,
Right.
and there's this myth, right? I was asked in a forum recently about resilience, right? And
Mhm.
there was this quote circulating around social media, right? Which sometimes kind of shows why social media, sometimes we have to be careful. We have to filter what we're taking in, right? So I took note of the quote, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm going to quote it as unknown because I saw like many different persons taking
Right.
accountability for it, right? So it says, I dream of never being called resilient again in my life. I am exhausted by strength. I want support. I want softness. I want ease. I want to be among skin, not patted on the back for how well I can take a hit or how many I can, right?
Mhm.
And while that quote, it sounds good, and I think a lot of people could resonate with it, what I found it to be faulty was that there's this myth again that resilience means doing it alone. So the person is saying, I don't want to be resilient, right? I don't want to do it alone. But the reality is that a component of resilience is connection. And that's something that we don't talk about. Right. A lot of times when we talk about resilience, we think, yeah, if I go through this situation by myself and nobody supporting me, yeah, I'm really resilient, and that is not the truth. So we
Right.
need persons, right? To answer your question in terms of persons with disabilities, more marginalized groups, what I can say is that there has to be the development of a relationship and communication between what are the needs of this community and how persons who live without disabilities can assist,
Yeah.
right? And so we just generally have to have that dialogue, and we have to get back to building community. If it's anything that we need going forward, and as I said, that the pandemic would have showed us is that we need community, right?
Right.
For persons who have disabilities, what I can say in practical ways to
Yeah.
help with loneliness, right? Again, the pandemic would have showed us the importance of using
But
technology.
before you talk about the practices,
Mhm.
right? Loneliness and isolation. So, what are some side effects? Because I know there's depression and
Right,
and stuff like that.
right.
And you just talk quickly about the side effects this leads to,
Sure,
you
sure.
know?
So,
Yeah.
so the research points to the fact that loneliness and isolation actually is attributed to poorer mental and physical health,
Mm.
right? So, persons who lack that social connection, you find that the anxiety levels and depression levels, but the anxiety levels will be high, they will experience depression, they would experience low self-esteem, and I actually found that it also even affects our immune system,
Sure.
right? So our health is at risk when we do not connect with others.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, we're going to mention, what are some practices? And also I have a question. You would
Mhm.
see persons and just to deflect a little bit, you would see persons always socializing, right?
Mhm.
Persons always out there doing stuff
Right.
and stuff like that, right? Is there a chance that they are also get sense of feeling of isolation, or is it just physical, meaning you're away from people? Can you answer that as well?
All right. So just to clarify, you're saying that you see some persons who are always socializing.
Right, always
Mhm.
out there doing things, working, etc.
Mhm.
Right? Is there a
Right.
chance they to have a chance of feeling isolated even though they're out there?
Yeah, definitely. It could be
Okay.
that those persons are possibly trying to fill some sort of void. They might have a family situation that may be happening at home where they're disconnected from their family. And so they try to fill that void by being preoccupied with activities, by going out and meeting persons. And the
Yeah.
reality is, I mean, when we look at even how celebrities, right? A lot of celebrities experience depression and anxiety, but they're always out there, they're always interacting with others. So there is a high possibility that although we are seeing that on the outside, that person could definitely be struggling with loneliness.
Yeah, and can you tell us quickly some practices, persons can do and how community can support in this?
Okay, so what I looked at was both therapeutic and non-therapeutic ways and practices that we could try. So firstly, of course, when you're looking at connection in a therapeutic way, you're looking at whether you're going to speak to a counselor, a therapist, it could be a coach, any professional who could help you navigate some of the challenges that you may be having. Right. We
Yeah.
also have, of course, support groups. Some support groups do not have to be therapeutic, right? But you could have a support group where you have single mothers may come together to support each other. It doesn't have to be therapeutic in nature, right? What I can say in terms of non-therapeutic is you want to look at joining an exercise group. You want to look at joining an art class or any opportunity that you have to connect with others. I would say, and it's something that I advocate for a lot in terms of we have to get back to even family, having dinner and breakfast together. It's challenging, but those are things that we don't do anymore.
Mhm.
And all of these practical ways creates opportunity for us to connect and help to alleviate our sense of loneliness.
Right. And in closing, right? Can you tell us in terms of accessibility to persons like yourself,
Mhm.
mental health advocates and stuff like that, counselors, therapists, is there
Yeah,
ease of access?
yeah. Well, accessibility is challenging,
Mhm.
particularly in the private sector, because of course that is paid, right? But we do have a number of organizations, and I found there's a website called Find Care TT, right? Right, Find Care TT, where you can go on that website and there's a list of organizations that offer counseling, that offer support to persons who are in need of therapeutic services.
Okay, so, Tanika, thank you so much for taking this time and sharing your work with us and sharing your knowledge, experience, and expertise with us. Thank you very, very much.
No
And,
problem. Thank you,
yeah,
Shamla,
and
for having me.
it's always a pleasure. And we have learned a lot in terms of isolation, loneliness, and what can be done.
Right.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you so much for
And
having me.
And guys, with that being said, I want to say thank you so much for tuning in to this week's segment of Unique Not Different. And as I always say before I leave, be good, do good. Bye, guys. Bye, Tanika. Thank you.
Bye bye. Take care.